that it would appear logically and through an extrapolation by the process by which Allah has done everything else, that He just constantly adds, because there is one shared DNA molecule that keeps having information added to it to make the next stage. Now, natural selection and genetic mutation isn't likely to do that kind of process. I mean, aside from the fact for other reasons they don't work. But since we see that this is the way Allah has, through all the different stages, worked, sent information by light energy to tell the different levels of matter how to organize, all He has to do to get to any one of these stages to another is just say, okay, now I want you, now the environment is right, because these actually came as when the environment was right. They just didn't all pop out together. So Allah waits till the environment is right, and then says, okay, add a few more subatomic particles in this certain order to the DNA molecule, and now it expresses a different form based on the original template that He has set up. We therefore no longer have, we have an actual mechanism by which it can work. We don't know that this is the mechanism, but by extrapolation we say it probably is the mechanism, because on all the levels we know about, it works that way. This level is so complex we can't understand this level well yet, but we would assume that the same process is going on, particularly because of the DNA molecule and how it works. It also then eliminates the need for the missing links. There are no missing links because there aren't any transition periods from one to the other. When Allah is ready, He just adds the few particles to the DNA molecule, and the next form appears. So that is stage 5. Now we get to the one that I have to be very careful about, stage 6. At stage 6, because I want to be really careful not to make a mistake on this, I am open to the possibility that Allah has gone through the stage of subatomic particles, atoms, molecules, biological life, and all the different stages within each of them, including the DNA molecule, and then totally separate from all this, and using, by the way, with a chimpanzee, 98+% identical DNA with a human being. So, I am open to the possibility that Allah, knowing that He has created all of this to this point, totally separately in paradise, creates Adam with this identical, and adds an extra 1-point-something% DNA to the molecule, to the DNA molecule, creates Adam from the clay of the earth, which the clay of the earth means basically the elements of the earth, as a totally separate creation from all of this. I'm open to that possibility. I'm also, though, open to the possibility that at this certain point, you notice when we go from oh, we don't have it anymore, fortunately. We just have to say it. When we go from subatomic particles to atoms, Allah did not choose to go to leave the subatomic particles and then make the atoms separate. But the atoms are a totally separate creation from the subatomic particles. They are a totally new level of existence. When Allah chose to go to the molecules from the atoms, He did not leave the original atoms and then make the molecules totally new, which he could have done, of course. But he made the atoms are a separate creation, totally different, 100% different in their nature from the atoms before them. When he made the biological life, he does not appear to have made the biological life totally separate and left the molecules as they were and not used them. He used the building blocks of the molecules to create biological life. And the biological life is a totally separate creation, a totally different thing than the molecules before. I am open to the possibility that Allah continued that same process, used all of these various stages as the building blocks to set up the time when he, through this same process, where he has sent information by light to tell the form to change, told the DNA molecule to change, to become atom. But atom is a special creation, totally separate from the animal creation, or from the rest of biological life, from animals. And interestingly, you know, the number of biological life forms is in the billions, but the number of human beings is only in the one kind. So it looks like this whole grand cosmic plan was to get to the point where Allah creates Adam, and then creates Adam which none of these other stages from the subatomic particles up to the chimpanzee can be. So he added a new quality to Adam. And remember I said that the plan appears to be that Allah, when he breathed his spirit into light, he breathed his spirit into light in absolute quality. But when the light becomes relative and becomes matter, that the spirit he has breathed in has a relative quality and cannot be very well expressed. It seems like the whole process of going from the subatomic particles up to Adam is like, looks a bit like this. Here we have spirit world. And then we drop from the spirit world, but we are going back. And we go through, you know, and all of these stages are set up for the creation of Adam, who therefore, as Khalifa, has to, by his choice, continue the path back to the spiritual world. And this appears to be what Allah's grand cosmic plan is. And in later talks, I'll just mention it now, that it appears to be a process that you know, when Allah told the angels that he had created human beings, or Adam will create a race to be his Khalifa on earth, and the angels, because of qualities that were breathed into them, knew the future and knew said, why would you create as your Khalifa beings who will create mischief and shed blood? And Allah says, I know what you do not know. He is talking about he has a particular purpose in doing this. And it looks like his particular purpose is the perfection of the soul by choice. With the angels are perfect because Allah made them perfect. With human beings, he gave us really a greater role than the angels, and that's why the angels had to bow down to us, because Allah's purpose for us is to perfect our soul, perfect our being, by our choice, by our free will. And so none of these chimpanzees or nothing below it, they don't have free will. Human beings have free will. But we have the free will to choose to do right, and we have the free will to choose to do wrong. Unfortunately, in the world today, too many choices are being made to do wrong. But we have the potential to continue this path back to the spirit world, and then enter paradise immediately if we have succeeded in that path. I don't want to get into some of the more esoteric things that will be in further lectures about this particular process. So, and so we have one light, two subatomic particles, 3 atoms, 4 molecules, 5 biological life, 6 atom and human beings, which are 6 stages of creation. And when we are told in the Quran that Allah created the world in 6 days, the scholars have said for various reasons they did not mean 6 days as we mean 6 days. And because the 6 days in the Quran, or a day in the Quran is in one place said to be 1,000 years, and in another place said to be 50,000 years, what the scholars have said is that what this is telling us is Allah is not in time like we are in time. And so that the creation was not in anything like 6 days. This was a symbolic way of telling us it was in 6 periods of time or 6 stages. And it is very interesting that when we look at the creation of the physical existence, it works out into 6 very distinct stages, and you could not add a stage or take a stage away. So, I hope I haven't offended anybody by the naturalistic aspect of it. I think I have totally destroyed any concept of involution as the driving force behind this, and have shown. And by the way, what I have told you about subatomic particles and atoms and molecules forming by information, by light that is sent from outside of space and time, although the scientists don't say that it is sent from outside of space and time, they don't actually mention that part, but what they are specifically saying is that every bit of matter in the whole universe is directed as what to do by inputs of photons of electromagnetic energy or light energy or light. So we know we know that science tells every bit of what I have told you is true. The question is it actually Allah's plan? Well, it fits exactly, as far as I can tell, with our Islamic theology. It is just a very different look at our Islamic theology. But in our interpretation of Quran, interpretation is not to be fixed. Interpretation is to be progressive. It is not to be changed. We can't say, oh, it used to say this, but now it says that. But we are to better and better understand it as the information comes in from our reading of the physical universe, or reading of the second Quran. As we come to understand more and more of the true nature of existence, we are to better and better interpret the theological meaning of the revelation that Allah has given us. And so this is my presentation of the of Allah's creation of His physical world, from the light at the beginning of the universe in a singularity, all the way up to Adam and to us as His Khalifa. And I thank you very much for letting me have the opportunity to give you this quite technical lecture.
I have one question.
Okay, I have not heard anyone else present these stages or this process before. But on the other one, two specific places. One, I did go to Yemen, to one of the most traditional Islamic schools with traditional scholars who are actually descendants of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and have been continuously scholars all the way from then until now in Tarim in Yemen, and discussed every bit of this matter and a lot more with them. And they were so impressed by it and saw no flaw in it that they thought that this is very likely the way to do dawah in the West and bring Islam to the West, and had made plans to set up an institute to bring scientists in to research these areas. Because, I mean, in a lot of these areas, obviously, they are not really my areas. I can't be in every one of these areas. So to bring in scientists who know more about these areas. So that is in about the most traditional Islamic scholarship in the world. In Malaysia, a very prominent Islamic scholar whose name I have a hard time pronouncing.
Uthman Muhammadi.
Uthman Muhammadi, who is a well-known scholar and has translated the Yusuf Ali version of Quran with commentary into Bahasa in several volumes, and I have discussed this at length with him, and he has said not only a lot about this, but also about the Khalifa plan on parenting and raising children to be good Khalifa of Allah, that everything in it is totally consistent with Islamic theology, and he supports every bit of it. So, I mean, that's just two places. I'm sure somewhere in the world somebody will take offense. I mean, I know that is a reality, but interestingly, nobody has taken offense so far. And I honestly expected somebody would take offense so far. But it is really carefully researched from both sides, and I think that is the reason. And also, it logically fits, and this is one of the reasons why I am Muslim, because Islam is a logical religion. And Allah did not give us revelation that is going to send us in a wrong direction. He gave us revelation that is going to send us in the right direction. And the more we find out, other religions, the more they find out, the more it seems to attack their religious beliefs. The more we find out, the more it seems to support our religious beliefs. So this is why I think that there has been so far nobody offended by this. Although, like I say, knowing how our ummah is, somewhere in the world, I'm going to offend somebody very badly with this. Yes, sister?
As you said, it makes so much sense. Offense or non-Muslim?
No, it'll be a Muslim who will take offense. I mean, there'll be many non-Muslims who will not accept the conclusions, right? They won't be able to deny the facts. I mean, I've actually had people say to me, I told you that I haven't had any physicists say that any of the facts are wrong, including the one who agreed with the general worldview. But I have also had physicists and biologists and various scientists write back and say, all of your science is correct, but we don't agree with your conclusions. But that's okay. I mean, every learning is a shaping process. I don't expect everyone who sees this and hears this to immediately become Muslim. But what I expect it to do is shift their thinking a little bit, be more receptive, at least to the possibility of the existence of God and us being the creation of God. And that absolutely has to happen. You cannot hear this information without having your consciousness shifted a little bit in that direction. And because of the way the normal curve works, some people will be shifted a little bit, most people will be shifted to whatever that middle degree is. But some people, we have had a few experiences of people seeing like a CD of my scientific proof of the existence of God, and next week converting to Islam, an American, and then showing another American the same CD, and then the next week he converted to Islam. So there are, and they are at the far end of the continuum. I don't expect that this will be something that will just sweep America, and America next year will be an Islamic state, right? But I think it is going to be really hard for Western scientists to argue against the logic and the facts that I have presented. You're going to feel very uncomfortable with the necessary logical implications, though. But for Muslims, answering that question, although I had no problem with any of this, in a claim once I made in a paper which wasn't attributed to my name, but it was put on the internet by somebody else, I had made the claim that every person in the world was Khalifah of Allah, that Allah created human beings to be His Khalifah. A certain scholar who when I looked up as much as it didn't, on the internet, I couldn't really find, he has a website, but it didn't really say what his background is. But I had hints in some of the wording, and by some of the early scholars he referred to, that he might be Wahhabi. And he said, anyone who would say that Allah created all human beings to be His Khalifa is guilty of unbelief. Now, I mean, I have literally read in 100 books that every human being is Khalifa of Allah. When I read semantically, and I have asked people who understand classical Arabic very well and understand Quranic interpretation very well, they say absolutely for sure it is saying in the Quran that every human being is created to be Khalifa of Allah. So what I'm saying is, the strange way we have in our Ummah, that there will be somebody who will hold a different opinion and take great offense at almost anything you say. And for any Muslim in the world, there is someone in the world who will consider them guilty of unbelief, no matter what their beliefs are, right? There will be somebody who will disagree with your beliefs to a degree that they will consider you guilty of unbelief. That is a big problem in our Ummah, which we need to overcome. Yes, sister?
Thank you for your lecture today, Brother Muhammad.
I mean,
Before, and then only the spiritual existence. It would be more in keeping with Tawheed.
but the reason I separated the two is because I did not want to make it seem like the light at the beginning of the universe was Allah. I wanted to say it came from the spiritual existence. I am open to it coming directly from Allah. But because I know there is a spiritual existence where there are angels and there are paradise and there is light, I wanted to separate in terminology from Allah, but not separate in reality from Allah. And personally, I don't separate the physical existence from Allah either. I agree with the ultimate Sufi view, the four levels of Sufi existence. I accept the fourth level, which is there is nothing but Allah, which has implications which I don't want to go into today. But when you say there is nothing but Allah, you are really saying a lot. But this is what I think is the case. There is nothing but Allah. Some people want to say there is Allah and His creation. But I have difficulty with the separation between Allah and His creation. I think the separation between Allah and His creation are from our relative point of view only, not from Allah's absolute point of view. So from Allah's point of view, there is Allah only. From our point of view, it looks like there is Allah and His creation as being separate. But that is only because of where we are looking from, and it looks that way. So I am by no means separating Allah from anything. 100% total Tawheed, more than some people might be willing to like to exist. I mean, as science background, it is a little difficult. I think in several talks I have done, I have simplified it a little bit more than this. Saba Islamic Media puts out one called Modern Science Finds God, which has two parts, the proof of the existence of God and the creation of the universe. I did them much more quickly than this. I did them in an hour each rather than 2+ hours each, and so I had to simplify them. And also, I think we may have some, I'm not really sure, that are different versions that I have done in different places. There are about 5 different versions out. This is probably today, other than in my daily classes, where I go really deeply into it, This is probably the most complex explanation I have given so far, because this is my plan. This group is a higher level. These weekend talks are a higher level than my standard go out and give a talk to people one time who aren't going to see me again.
That leads to 5. From stage 1 to 5, it's already there. Then you create Adam, embodying whatever is already there up to stage 5.
I'm saying that is one of the two possibilities. The other possibility is that he broke in at this point, stopped the process right here, and then created Adam totally separately. I'm saying that is possible also. If that is how Allah chose to do it, I am as happy as I could be. If Allah chose to do it in this way and make Adam the next natural step in the unfolding of his plan, I am as happy as I can be. I think that both of them seem to be consistent with the information we are given in the Quran. Neither one seems to conflict with it, although I know that we did, because we didn't understand this whole long process of development. Of course, we thought Adam was just created totally separate from everything else. And I know, although we don't really think of it in these terms, but because in the Quran Allah says, I created Adam from the wet clay of the earth with my hands, right? Well, we say, well, Allah doesn't have hands, so we say that's symbolic knowledge. But the other part of it, we still, I think, do a little bit in our minds, at least some Muslims, sort of have a little bit of the idea of Allah just sort of scooping up the stuff and you know, putting it together, and here is Adam. I mean, I don't think we really simplify it quite like that, but I mean, that is somewhat the idea that we get, that it is just a total process done like that. And I would say that description adequately describes what I am talking about here in this long process. That long process could be described symbolically by those same words, that I took the clay of the earth and with my power of my hands created Adam. So because it is so deeply ingrained into us that Allah is a separate creation, separate from all these other things, I say I am open to it. I mean, because I don't know exactly how Allah did anything. I'm just saying the evidence that when Allah says, look at the other Quran, how the universe works, and learn what you can about me and my creation, then this is what I have learned. But this does not mean I have learned it perfectly yet. So I say truthfully that I am open to either possibility, but personally assign the probability higher to the fact that Allah just went on with the plan that He was doing and created Adam the same way He created the other things along the way. But for a very special purpose, that everything was leading up to the creation of Adam, which gives Adam a much more special purpose in the creation than anything else. All the other things were just things to get to Adam and to create an environment conducive to allow Adam to be his Khalifa, to then, by his own choice, continue on to paradise.
Can that be
Yes.
confusing, because what Darwin was saying that we evolved from apes or chimpanzee. Is there a continuum from a chimpanzee and then evolving into the primitive man and go into Adam?
No. No, I actually, that's not how it worked.
Because that can be confusing for people who don't understand.
No, it's a good question. It's very complex, and I don't want to imply at all, just because chimpanzee has 98% of the DNA that a human being has, that Allah added to the chimpanzee DNA. That what seems to be the process is that along the way we have constant branchings going off. And some of these branches, they go all sorts of different places. These branches are happening here also. And to the degree, I mean, obviously, we share many characteristics with the mammals called primates, right? There's no question about that. Not just in DNA, in look, in physical characteristics, in all sorts of things. The break-off in the line, where there was separation, was there's no point to say, there's no way to say really where the break-off on the separation was, but we separated from monkeys and apes as these lines were separated probably between 20 and 40 million years ago. So it's a very complex process how this worked. I mean, I drew it linear, but it is not actually linear in this way. And I definitely, I'm not saying we developed from the apes. I'm saying specifically we did not develop from the apes, but that we shared a common ancestor with other primates. But that somewhere back here, we had ancestors who were that before there were, say for instance, before there were mammals, there were reptiles, and I'm assuming this is true, that we would have had in our line of ancestry reptiles. But this is not to say we came from dinosaurs either, you see, that lines were breaking off all along. But very clearly, which the most important part is, the big argument against Darwin saying, Darwin having believed to have said human beings developed from the apes, absolutely is not the case. And actually Darwin never said that. It was the people arguing against Darwin's theory who said that, and the idea got caught on and got attributed to Darwin, who actually himself said it wasn't the case. And in the last paragraph of Darwin's book on the origin of the species, he said something to the effect that, isn't it marvelous the way Allah has created, the way God has created all of these different forms? And by the way, I didn't actually mention on natural selection, because I said there is some truth to natural selection. Natural selection is a process in the development, but it is not a process in the development of amoeba to sea sponge to jellyfish to starfish to whatever, right? But what natural selection does do, and why natural selection was not an unreasonable thing for Darwin to come up with as a process, is that within a species, natural selection works very well. And the best example we know of is dogs. Probably 4,000 to 5,000 years ago, there were 3 or 4 different kinds of dogs in the world, and they were all very similar. But because of breeding techniques, which is like organized natural selection, we get dogs from dogs as big as human beings down to dogs about this big. And this happened through natural selection, and can happen through natural selection also. It is very likely that say for instance, giraffes millions of years ago had necks not as tall as they have now. That's not unlikely at all. But a horse didn't become a giraffe. A fly will never become a bird, or a mosquito will never become a fly. Natural selection doesn't get you from one stage to another. Natural selection can make many alterations within a stage. You take virtually any animal into a cave and leave that animal in there for 1,000 generations. That animal will go blind and it will lose its color. This is why we have on Earth people with different colors. You go to different environments, and natural selection creates the skin color and the hair style, the hair qualities and the body shape that is most harmonious. But that is Allah doing that also, you see, because Allah is sending messages about everything. Every single bit of matter, not just at the subatomic level, but the atomic level, the molecular level, the biological life level, and the human level. Allah is constantly sending information from outside of space and time through absolute light with messages to tell that bit of matter what to do to best follow his plan. So this is why what is called natural selection, which does work within stages but doesn't create from stage to stage, this also is a process directed by Allah. Allah knows if people live near the equator on the planet, it is better they have darker skin. If you live near the other end of the planet where there's not much sunlight, He knows it is better for you to have light skin, because He has made us so that we need a certain amount of various vitamins and things that come in through sunlight. So, you know, Allah makes us the way that we work best in the world. So all of these things, you know, and really, don't forget this thing I said earlier. This is not just physics and biology. This is a very intimate look at the way Allah may have created His physical existence. And I say may have. My opinion on Islamic interpretation of our theology is that if science does not conflict with our theological beliefs in Islam, we accept as the reality of highest probability the best science of the time. If better science comes along that better explains it, then we progress in our interpretation of our revelation. But I think what I have presented today is about the highest point of the interpretation of our revelation that we have been able to have so far. But by no means would I be so arrogant as to think that I have been perfect in every bit of this analysis and this interpretation. I think that it is a good step and needs to be taken further because, I mean, as I had said, I have only taken it to a couple of other places, and as far as I know, other than on a few other websites that have copied the stuff off of our website, which they are welcome to do, I am the only one really who has been saying this. And I am only saying this as well as I'm saying it now fairly regularly. I think in the future, I mean, like I told you, it was the plan of the scholars in Yemen to start, you know, actually I did 14 hours on videotape for them of lectures, which they were going to then translate into Arabic and distribute. And then set up an institute to do research into this, and set up an institute in the United States to do dawah work by spreading this kind of information in the United States. So I think while it may be new at the moment, and when something is new, you know, we have to be cautious with it, but I ask you to evaluate this on the basis of like logic and reason, and does it fit with our Islamic theology? And it seems to do those things, so that, and it fits very well with what science has told us as we look at the universe through the facts of science. And if we don't do a secular materialistic scientific analysis of it, we do an Islamic analysis of it, it seems to fit virtually perfectly. All of these things make me think that it is at least on the right track. Details to be filled in later, and a few corrections made, of course. Yes, brother.
I have two questions, but on a different perspective than what you've answered. If you take this theory as is, and
if you were to read my complex book, I would be saying, I do say in the book, that we have no idea when this process is going to happen, and that it is an accelerating process. And while it could take, I seriously doubt it would take billions of years, because I don't think we have billions of years because of some nature of the way the universe is. But I doubt it would take millions of years. I say it could take thousands. I say it could take hundreds. It could take generations, or it could happen in the next minute.
But it took us this long to use 10% of the brain.
Well, we don't. That's just a terminology. We don't know we use 10%.
So science can raise some kind of those questions to extrapolate future, which could be absolutely incorrect. Okay?
No, I don't agree with that at all. I mean, with you saying science is extrapolating a future that could be absolutely incorrect. Science is saying we just don't know what happens between there and there. between the point where we are now and there. I mean, you know, we could have a Holocaust tomorrow, and the end is here. So our line doesn't get there. You know, I think Allah, in giving us the freedom, when He breathed His Spirit into Adam and gave Adam the freedom to have free will, to make choice, and therefore all of us to make choice, that choice would include even the most horrible choice to destroy our whole planet. I don't think Allah would step in and stop us. I think that is part of the process. So we don't even know we're going to make it. So science cannot really be absolutely wrong there. Science is saying, I mean, science doesn't say about this, but what is logically allowable to say from here is from where we are now to the end is still in the will of Allah, and we don't know yet.
Okay. The second question is, like you mentioned earlier, when we started the thing, that there could be other planets and there could be other lives in the universe, which is a very logical thinking from, again, a scientific point of view, and I agree with that kind of idea. But that also means that, okay, you've reached that stage, and you can also go into vertical evolution, where again, what it is going to be, or which planet is going to be defining man reaching the end stage, will also be open to interpretation.
Yes, but one of the possibilities is that Allah has created on trillions of planets life that is moving, is going through this process of leaving the spirit world, going into all of these different stages and hoping to come back. Some will succeed, some will not. That is a possibility also. It is a logical possibility, and it fits with science, and it does not go against our theology. But we don't know.
You said
for sure
man is the best of Allah's creation. Do you mean that there is another kind of life or living form which is more intelligent than man?
When I say man is the best of Allah's creation, I would say wherever. You remember when I was talking about, I don't remember whether it's on this last one or not, when I was talking about our sun being a small yellow dwarf and how it formed, which no isn't on here, unfortunately. Anyway, our star being a small yellow dwarf that formed in a certain way and would have planets around it similar to ours, but those planets would have some variation. That variation, as Allah is creating a form of life to be most harmonious in that environment, might have some variations in the light, in the actual physical form of the life as He unfolds His general plan. Because it is not just that Allah has one way of doing things, He has several. It isn't like, although on this planet He has created Adam in only one form, on another planet Adam could have a slightly different form, but would have the same spiritual characteristics when Allah breathed His spirit in to Adam, or the equivalent of Adam on another planet, if such a thing is part of His plan. That spirit would make him man, even though the physical form would make him human, even though the physical form might look slightly different. So anywhere that Allah's plan gets to the point of creating a being who by free will must finish the path from progression back to the spiritual world, that would be fair to define that as human being. And whether one would be superior or not to intelligence, I think we would have probably a normal curve on that also, as we have a normal curve on other things. And we don't know where we are on the normal curve. Although we do know, because we might expect, if we have these life forms occurring on a lot of different planets, in some places, Allah would be sending messengers to these people also. And so there might be, on the normal curve, we would expect there would be planets where people would just take Allah's message and live by it, and everything would go really smoothly, and they would just rush toward paradise. And there would be those places where people would just totally ignore his message forever and destroy themselves. And there are those places, like we seem to be on Earth right now, where we are not sure whether we're going to make it or not. I mean, I couldn't say for sure whether or not our planet is going to survive 50 years because of in the direction we are going right now. So that is what, if there are trillions of planets, there will be a natural curve on this also. And we don't know where we fall in that natural curve. Will we be one of the survivors where as a species we get to paradise, or will it just be some individuals along the way make paradise, and then we destroy ourselves before we give possibility for the totality of Allah Zuma to achieve paradise?
If I can have a last question. Can you elaborate or clarify when you said when Allah is ready, He will go to the next step. When Allah is ready, He will go to the next step. Can you clarify that? Readiness.
Yes, ready seems to be when Allah has used the previous stages to alter the environment until the environment will allow a harmonious existence of the next stage. In other words, Allah did not put subatomic particles together to make atoms when the temperature of the universe was so great that it overcame what we call the electromagnetic force. In other words, He did not want to force those the electron and the proton together against the environmental circumstance. So he created the environmental circumstance where they were harmonious. The fact that it took 1.5 billion or 2.5 billion years to get from a one-celled organism to a multi-celled organism, what was happening during that time was that the one-celled organisms went through a lot of various developmental stages. Many of those developmental stages created major changes on our planet, among them changing our atmosphere from a carbon-based atmosphere to an oxygen-based atmosphere, which allowed the higher stages then to come into existence. So what I mean by being ready, that Allah sets the stage by creating a harmonious environment before He creates the next stage to go into that environment. Okay, well, we are, I think, quite a bit over time. For those who wanted copies of last week's lectures, they are available, I think, for 10 ringgit each. Tomorrow's talk will be on the laws of learning, starting at 9:30. And remember, punctuality is appreciated by me and I think Allah.